And then once you scan a particular item or you enter a receipt, it will tell you, okay, what is the total quantity that has been received and how much you're going to inspect. Now this UI, this is what the UI is there on the standard application of ours. So in case you want any, I mean, I can show you another UI that has been developed for a different customer where it's more on a table format. And they don't want to answer quantity by quantity, they just do a multi-check and then proceed ahead. So it totally depends whether you want to do it quantity by quantity wise or you want to do a bulk inspection like that once you just inspect all. So because what happens frankly is that when you do bulk, there are chances of actually physically missing to inspect something and you just submit it to the system. When you do quantity by quantity, you are actually physically checking one by one and then you are moving it away. So that I'll leave to you when we actually have a session to tell us like which we want to put. Okay. So here the inspection plan questionnaires. So these fields will keep changing. So say for one of the items you want your test plan has say 5 different characteristics. For other it might have 2 or 3 characteristics. So it will then ask you all those relevant information. So is this the correct part? What is the memory transfer rate? What is the memory clock? So these field prompts also has Abdul mentioned, whatever you have configured in Oracle, that will be rendered as it is here. Okay. So I just select the correct path and say yes. And then I enter the memory transfer rate. So the range here is, there's one more thing here is that we don't display what is the expected value. So there is a mix here. So some customer sellers don't display so that the users actually enter what is there. Because they say if you enter the range, then they know what has to be. I mean, it's similar to when you do cycle counting also. Normally, it's not suggested to show what is the system quantity. It should be blind. So when you actually count, no one should know what is there in the system, because then there is a chances of trying to match with it. Right. So if you want this actual values or the target value to be shown, we can show it. But again, this will come up to you whether how you want to have the restrictions. So for example, for this memory transfer rate, the range is between 660 to 675, right? So I could enter, say, any question?
We use it. No.
We're not using
it. We're gonna use it. What is this actually? We don't use it.
This is inspection plan.
The memory.
No, this I've just configured in mine.
Okay.
It's just my inspection. Your end, the questions will differ.
Okay, that's what. Okay, yeah. That's why we got them.
Yeah, but because this we're demoing in our instance, we still don't have access to.
We're definitely using inspection.
Okay,
receiving, but the term itself
okay.
Confused.
This is just for our demo that we show to customers. So that's what I said. These questions can be different as per your business process. I say save. Now, if you see, my inspected quantities become 1, okay, and my accepted is 1. So if anything I enter as incorrect, so let me say the correct part is say no, and I say transfer rate as 170. So now I'm entering an incorrect answer, for instance. Say save. So now my inspected quantity is 2, accepted is 1, and rejected is 1, because one of them answered all the answers correctly, but the other I had a different answer. Right? So this is how the PO with inspection plan will work. Okay. Any questions so far?
Well, I think this one step I am doing now. There is another register. They have to update the PO price or something.
Mm-hmm.
Which one will be taking first? This transaction or?
Can do probably simultaneous transaction at a time, right? And he's asking is he, when he's receiving it, right? Somebody maybe wants to correct the cost of the part. It's almost like you're editing a view, isn't it?
Correct.
So he's saying can be done either simultaneous.
It can, because that's more of a data correction that you're doing. While you're doing a transaction, it's two different things actually.
I think it doesn't, it give you error, right? I don't know.
Because it'll be in receiving status. I mean, you already initiated receiving.
It's the same, like, for example, if you are, even if you are receiving at the same time, somebody is in procurement is modifying the part number cost, you'll get probably error.
Hmm.
Cannot do the transaction, or either one has to finish first. Probably that will be error for you. You have to fix the cost, then you receive.
I'm we are opening and PC also working transaction.
Okay.
So same work order number, there is a multiple application. It's showing error.
What is the process? What is the concept?
For example, I'm doing final completion, the material issuing or something. The same work order, there is another one user, they are opening for move transaction. Yes.
How does it come before a move
In the EBS, we cannot open same work in two times. Right? Two
or editor mode? No way.
No, it's not very. If I open the order here, I'm not user. I'm opening. And the same work order, if another user is open, it will show error.
Yeah.
And the same will come.
No, it will be same.
Should be like that only.
That should be. You cannot allow. That's what I said. Any transaction on specific part number, right? You cannot allow duplication. It will be always like that. It is not this one. It's the Oracle system.
Correct. That's more of a locking mechanism. Like that.
So because you cannot do anything until the finish. You'll always give it. Or maybe it will say somebody is open or something already in process, something it will show.
In EBS middle case, getting error saying it's locked by a user basically. In short, if someone else is editing and you're also trying. But this is more of editing the actual document or the data. What we're seeing there is more on the transaction side. What you're trying to explain is more on the data that has already been logged, document has already been created, you're trying to edit that document. So, I mean, there are two differences here.
Yeah. We don't want duplication.
No, you cannot. The only thing you can do is either ask someone to stop or you stop and ask him.
No, actually, you should be doing after his work.
After his work.
You know, I mean,
You cannot do when you are doing. Process, yes. For example, we can update the routing anytime. That's not a problem, even if it is the work order or work order transaction, no issue. But not for you. All right.
Any other?
So this is the one it goes location, right? After inspection, you say. After inspection, when you put into stock, that is where you ask for location.
No, the next step when you do a put away.
Okay.
After this, yes, that should be.
It also enters the location when you put away, right?
Correct.
Not while receiving.
no,
After inspection,
Sorry.
Yeah, after inspection. So during put away, a location becomes mandatory.
is there any column on hold?
In the sense?
Like basically, that PC person need to put on hold or reject or accept. There is 3 steps. Is there on hold something?
During inspection, you're saying? Or yeah, so during inspection, yes. So when you do through an inspection plan, it's purely based on your questionnaires as part of the inspection plan. However, you can also have an inspection status maintained or an inspection result maintained as. So when you say on hold, you want to actually put it on hold?
yeah, because we are clarifying with somebody. Means at that point we can make a decision. We are waiting for somebody else's customer's approval or whatever.
Okay.
So you get a provision that we can keep that load as on hold. Could be, right?
But I'm just thinking, so do you have the other enabled as of in your new application now? They have cloud application.
No, currently.
Not yet? Okay, I think you'll have to do it through a material status if I'm right. So there is a material status option available
Okay.
where you can stop it from further transactions being processed on that particular.
That will do that.
Correct. Yeah, I can look into that. I'll check if we can enable that. I'll just note it down. So this will be post inspection prior to moving to inventory. Correct?
Yes, yes.
Any other thing? So the third step as part of your receiving is delivery or put away, which means you've done receiving, you've done inspection, now you're moving it to the location, the sub-inventory, right? So you'll again enter the PO number. Then you can either enter the receipt number, if you know the receipt number, or as I mentioned, during the receiving step itself, we will have a barcode printed for your item. Correct? So you could then straight away scan that barcode of the item on the item. So there are both options available. So we'll have again separate sessions for how the label we can design. So in the label, you can have receipt number, the receipt date. So looking at the item barcode sticker itself, you will know which receipt you are currently or which item you're currently actually putting away. So you'll have more information by reading the barcode itself. Okay. So I'm just selecting one of the receipts. Now, if you see, the sub-inventory has become mandatory, right? And earlier in receiving step, it was non-mandatory because you may or may not enter a stock. But when you do a put away, when you're actually moving to the inventory, you should enter a storage location, right? So typically, if your locations are barcoded, you can directly scan the barcode of your location, or you can select it from the list of value. So I'll just say select a sub-inventory. Then if your sub-inventory is locator controlled, it will ask you for the locator, the row rack shelf, the combination that you have defined within Oracle. Do you generate dynamic locators?
So already defined location is there.
Okay, but you don't generate. So sometimes there are need where.
No. What are already provided?
Already predefined locators only what use. Okay. Now see this. Now this item, since it's lot controlled, okay, it's asking you for the lot number and then the manufacturing date or the expiry date. So one of the question: are your lot control items? Do you have expiry date controlled or is it shelf life based?
You have some part.
Shelf life and
Yeah, screws, there is no.
no expiry.
Rest of the product, yeah, we have expiry date, manufacturing, everything.
So you enter expiry date by yourself, or do you also have shelf life days defined? There's no shelf life. So shelf life is typically that is also there. Shelf life is typically where you will not need to enter the expiry date. System will automatically calculate the expiry date based on the number. So for example, one item has shelf life days of 365 hours. Okay. If I am receiving this item today, system will automatically compute the expiry date as 5th of September 2020, 4th of September 2023. Because in Oracle, I've defined my shelf life days as 365. So there are two ways to this. Either you manually enter the expiry date, or system calculates the expiry date based on the shelf life. So I understand you have manual expiry date.
Yeah, manual.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So there are two options here. You can either select an existing lot, because you might say, suppose you're receiving a particular item, you can receive it in the existing lot, or you can generate a new lot also. So there are both possibilities. So let's say I just choose an existing lot. Now I can enter the lot quantity. So the reason we have a lot quantity here is that you can put away in multiple lots. Like when I say that, it means, say I'm receiving 4 quantities. Okay, I might keep 2 quantities in one lot and 2 quantities in another lot, right? Or I might keep all 4 in one lot. So in the same screen, you can distribute if the quantity among different lots or within the same lot. So that's a possibility that you may have, but not necessary that you have to move it to different lots. You can also put the full quantity in the same lot also.
Same thing you can do on the location also. I can click location.
So correct. So 2 quantities, 1 location, and then 2 in another. Yes.
You can, right?
Yeah. So then you'll enter the lot quantity. So and then you have put away next. So the difference is that when you do put away, it will move this. It will update an oracle that this so much of quantity has been put in this location against this lot. Put away next will complete this transaction. Stay on the same screen so that you can scan the next item. So the only difference is put away will take you to the main menu. Put away next will you can continue with the same PO and the same receipt. That's it.
So this locator is not there. It's not general expense and you don't have the locator. So in that case, what you do? That is mandatory, right? Locator.
So correct. So when it's an expense item, you will not have a sub-inventory or location. It's basically to an expense location itself, correct? So that point of time, sub-inventory locator will not be mandatory. So the screen layout will change based on your item characteristics. And typically expense items have receipt routing, as Jyotish mentioned, during as direct only. So in one step, you will receive your expense items. So that point of time, sub-inventory will not be asked for. Any other? Yeah.
Some we are raising like pooling. Some item has predefined part number is there. It has the location. Some item they raised as a template. So it will provide inside one PO or one PR. If I open the PR or PO here, right? PO, it will show different lines like general expense or part number different.
Oh no, you're saying there's one PO. One PO has say 4 different line items, correct? Right. Okay. Then what is the next question?
Then two numbers like they have the part number. Like locator is assigned already. Predefined locator is there.
Okay.
2 items doesn't have any locator or anything. It's a general expense.
Means 2 are direct and 2 are indirect.
Understood.
So in that case, if I open the PO here, it will show as a direct, indirect in the same page, or we need to go other.
It will show you all the 4 items there. Okay. But there's no indication whether it's a direct or indirect. Okay, I understand from your term, direct indirect means whether it's an expense item or an inventory item.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So yes, in that list, it will show you all 4 items. We could probably add one additional column which says this is an expense item and this is an inventory item. Will that help to differentiate?
It is required.
So your, if I'm not wrong,
while creating a material master, they are already defining the GL codes over there. So from there, it has already been taken out that whether it's an inventory item or it is the expense item.
correct. No, so what they're saying is when they receive it in the mobility current, okay.
Oh,
When they look at the item list,
yes.
they also understand which one is inventory and which one is expense item by looking at this. I'll show it. So let's take for example. So let's say I have this PO, okay, and this PO has, for instance, line items, okay. They want to have visibility of looking at this list to indicate which is an expense item and which is a inventory item by just looking at this list. Am I right? To differentiate whether I'm receiving a direct item now or an indirect item. So they just want to highlight over here in the list.
In the EPS, part number and locator is already predefined.
Yes.
When receiving a,
It will get defaulted.
we need to give the locator. If it is not given locator, then it will not accept it. But in general expense, we can blank that.
General expense, you don't need to enter any supplementary also.
Yeah, right.
Correct. So that's something more of an item supplementary they have to define. You define a specific supplementary for an item. That's on the item configuration side. Correct. Yes. So I understand in that point of view, when you receive it, the supplementary which has been defined against the item gets defaulted. Only thing you enter is then the locator. Any other thing that you have here as part of receiving?
That serial. That is the lot number.
Correct.
Instead of lot number, we can enter the serial number also. Same way. Yeah.
Same. So serial number you can enter in two ways, either in range or individually, because see you're receiving 100 serials. So 100 serials could be in continuous range, right? Or it could be mixed up. Partial, correct. So you could then choose whether you want to receive these items in continuous range or partially.
Okay, and okay. The 50 quantity.
Mm-hmm.
We are entering from two serial numbers.
Correct.
How the label is generated?
Per serial, one label.
Only one.
Per serial, one label. So typically that's how we recommend. If you're receiving in lot, one label. But if you're receiving 50 serial items, it should be 50 labels. Because individually they are one item only, right? One serial is one quantity always. So that the system will derive based on number of serials that you're actually receiving as to how many labels should be printed. I can show you. Just an example here. I mean, one of our customers labels I'm just showing you. So when they receive in serials, right? What they do is they receive. So this is a label which is generated. Okay. So they have the PO number, the receipt date, the item code. Okay. And then you have the item barcode. Okay. And then you have a serial barcode, which means if I've received 50 serial items, this label will be printed 50 times. Each will have its own unique serial number barcode. So that later on when you have to transfer this item or issue this item or consume it as part of the work order, you just scan these barcodes. In case of lot, you will have a different, so we can have a different label for it. Sure. So in case of lot, you can have a QR code because lot has expiry date also, right? So what we then do is within one single barcode, you can have multiple data. So it will have the expiry, it will have the lot number, the expiry date, and the lot quantity all in one. So with a single scan of one barcode, we can auto-populate the required fields. So the barcode type will differ. For serial, it will be a 1D barcode where serial number is plain. We all know it's one quantity only. But lot could be multiple quantity and every lot could have a different expiry date. So for that, so these things we will be discussing again during the requirements. But I'm just trying to highlight yes, such labels can be configured how you want. Any questions? Like if I'm fast, let me know. I can explain. Fine.
Do you have any example of means put away transaction with the serialized load? You have
With serial?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Multiple quantities in the same PO.
Yeah, right. For instance, this is a serialized item. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm putting away this item and show how the UI looks like. So enter the submetry as a locator. This was my received and inspected quantity, which is 5. Okay. Now we see I have serial type as individual or range. Okay. So typically, as I mentioned, if our serials are not in continuous range, we can select serial type as individual and scan serial one by one. So now my current serial count is 5. Okay. So let's say I'll just okay, let's say I have this barcode.
That is for one or
Yeah, this is one. Okay, so you could also have a QR code. So how are your suppliers sending the serial number barcodes now? Are they sending it or
they send or we create.
you're also creating?
Going forward, we have to create.
Then I think during receiving step itself, see, then that case you can avoid this. If you
Do I have to scan 50 times or no? That is my
that's correct. So it differs. See, if those 50 serials are in continuous range, you can enter from serial into serial and finish.
okay.
But if the 50 serials are not in continuous range, then you have to enter it
We have the scan.
individually, because then otherwise system will not come to know. So that will totally differ on how the serial numbers have been arranged. Even in Fusion as of today, it's the same thing. If you say range, you enter SR1 50 quantity, it will automatically consider 2 as SR50. It'll take from the starting number till the last number. So here, if it's individually, just scan one by one, and the moment serial count becomes 0, it'll then you can then put away this material. Okay. Any questions here? It's fine. So in transit transfer orders for now, I guess since it's a future thing, I'm just skipping this for now. But in case, for now, they don't want to use this solution, right?
We
Receiving,
don't do that.
receiving or
In transit receipt, we don't.
In transit receipt.
No.
we do some. We do some actually. I better to go for it. Just demo. We do some. You know, remember all the
Yeah.
international shipments?
Yeah.
We have to pay in advance. We need to know this. Better go through
Yeah,
this. We do. For example, even the nitrogen quality.
Nitrogen classification, we did one.
They ask payments before it received. So there are several examples like that. Not only we have to. Even then, I think some of the handco material and handco advanced. Yeah, postal fine material. And there are a lot of other suppliers who ask for, the problem is 30-day shipment, payment terms, and it is shipped by sea. If each year takes 2 months, so they ask for it. So we have to be better to go for it.
Okay. So how have we configured this currently in system fusion?
Right now, it's all payment. See, this affects our payment terms. Okay, nothing much. So it is about the moment we put the receipt, it's been processed to the next level. Right? This one specifically affects us when there is a supplier asking us payments before we receive them.
Mhm.
So that's when probably the key we can.
Actually, this in transit shipment, yeah, you could, but normally it is used when it has been shipped out from a within the same view. It has been shipped from a particular org, and you're receiving it as a shipment in the other org.
Within same organization.
You're talking about only
Different orgs.
Yeah, so anything third party.
Could be.
Yeah.
No, third party no, but third party you not define as an inventory org in your system, right?
This one will
Yeah,
be,
correct, exactly.
but it's not a third party.
This is not third party.
Then-
This is purely, I mean, within the same way you have multiple orgs. You say one in the UAE, one in KSA. So you shipped out one from UAE and then you receive one in KSA. So that's also an in-transit shipment, but that is within your own view.
We have a rack,
Hmm.
but that is the point thought about initially.
Hmm.
We might have this one, the work order.
Okay.
I'm not sure how this would work. Because as I said, we have a work order, right? It's a processing. There is an operation in between.
Hmm.
We're gonna do that with the internal company.
Okay.
We transfer it and get back and receive it.
That be kind of a staging.
It's a kind, no, it is just a, it's still a little confusion for me because it's a new way of doing. Because we have a 3 different inventory all within a one entity. I'm not sure whether this is gonna work for us. Because previously we used to create POs on it. Now we cannot create POs within a one entity. So they are suggesting to go for order kind of internal material transfer and receive it as the same. Not sure, is it the same thing?
No, this is different.
Oh.
So as part of inventory, so then there are processes like sub-inventory transfers, like moving within the organization from one location to another. Project is a different module altogether. Then you can look at your item inquiry. So typically across multiple orgs. So say one item in 3 different inventory orgs, I can look at the complete on-hand stock in each location wise. Or I can look at a detailed item inquiry also for a specific organization. Transaction history, this is like the transaction history, like material transaction EBS, or in using the completed transactions page where, so you have done a transaction from the handheld device, you just want to be sure, okay, this has got posted to Oracle or not. Then you can come to the transaction history and look at has the transaction gone through file. So it's just to view your transactions that have been done for a particular date range.
So this is the kind of report or not?
It's not a report, it's like a copy of the screen. But I've seen this in Oracle. So you have this review completed transactions in Fusion. It's like particular transactions that you have in PS. You look at the what have been the transactions done so far based on. Yeah, so it's not a report. So the same thing we have just developed on the mobility front also. It has this date range, transaction date. Okay. And then
My
transaction.
question is when it shows, it can export as a report or?
No. This is on the project side. I'll just skip this. Then miscellaneous issues. So if you want to do any issue against the particular account, so there are two ways. Either do a alias issue, wherein you have an alias defined for your GL account, or you do a miscellaneous issue where you know the complete account combination. That will again differ based on which you would want to access. You can also create a movement request from the. So if you want to have someone wants a stop to be filled in a particular location, so I can raise a movement request, and then later the movement request can be pick released and you can pick confirm it. Material status. This is like updating. I think one of them asked question where you want to put a location or a lot or some item on hold, right? So material status you can put a particular entity, which could be an item, which could be a lot, a subunity or location on hold, and that will be blocked for further set of transactions. So you cannot do any transfers or any whatever transactions you want to hold until the item is cleared from the hold. Cycle counting or physical counting. So are you following both or both? Okay.
PI, well, we don't need it mostly because it never triggered so far. But cycle count is regular.
So your cycle counts are all. Is it like user driven or system driven? When I say user driven, system driven, it means do you hand over the complete report to them and then they walk down the floor and do it? Or?
Yes, we are doing weekly.
Hmm.
The report from that. We are going to check the physical.
Okay, so you look at the report, it will tell you this location,
Yeah.
this item.
Yeah.
Then you go to the location, you count it, and then.
It is the ABC analysis.
Correct. Okay. So it's more of a system driven that you do, where you get the report from the system and then you go as per the system. Okay.
The updating, constant the quantity.
Sorry.
The cycle count updating, the financial team.
So finance team, okay, the count is not entered by the inventory guys.
No. Physically we are doing. Physically we are counting and writing.
And then you hand over the paper to the
Finance team.
It may change.
Then because then if you have this, then you have that you avoid that manual work of entering on the paper.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So you directly enter the count from the device. That's
We'll
the thing
change
that we're
when
bringing
you
here.
have this. You're gonna enter, they may verify. Only they will do only the any adjustments they have to do.
Anyways, approval will happen in Fusion.
Exactly.
From here, it will be just the count entry which is sent. Post approval, only your adjustments are going to take place. So the approval part can remain with the finance guys and they take it. So this is to avoid that paper. See, currently you're printing a paper.
Yes.
On that paper, you're writing the count. Then you walk back to the system. Then the finance guy enters it. So that 2 steps of printing a paper, writing it can be avoided by doing the transaction on the device itself. So you open a cycle count. It will tell you this location. Go there. Count gets pushed to Oracle directly. So the manual entries are what is mainly avoided. Then your approval process happens in Fusion and adjustments will take place accordingly. Intra transfer, again, this is what we've been discussing. When you have more number of inventory orgs coming in future, then to transfer between those, you'll have an intra transfer. Account alias issue, account alias receipt is similar to your miscellaneous issue and miscellaneous receipt. Only thing is you have an alias against your account combination. Label request, this is for generating labels on demand. So when we start to implement, initially you would want to print all your item labels, the item that is currently in stock, correct? You want to print your labels for the locations.